Well, let's get started. Again, I'm going to have to quickly introduce my, my panelists. We'll start from the far right there. Sani Şener, the Chief Executive Officer of TAV, an airport management company operating 15 airports across 8 countries, including Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. TAV's business strategy became so successful that Harvard Business School had to understudy it. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Sani Şener.
Thank you.
I've had to rehearse the name of the next person I am introducing pretty much because it is absolutely unacceptable to pronounce the guest's name in a very awful way.
It's okay, I can, it's Josianne Cutajar.
Yes, oh yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. So my next guest is Josianne Cutajar. She is a member of the European Parliament and she focuses on travel and transportation, I believe so. Yes. Please put your hands together for her. Thank you. And please put your hands together for yourself for being present. Just a round of applause for yourselves. Thank you. And last but not the least, is Petar Vitanov. He's also a member of the European Parliament Travel and Transport Commission. A round of applause for him. And in absentia, a round of applause for the scientists who made this day a reality for us, because right now we have over 2.2 billion people vaccinated in the world. If not for vaccines, we wouldn't be back here in this room and trying to continue to live our lives. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for all of the companies around the world who's made vaccine very possible. Now, let's talk tourism and mobility and travel sector in Europe. As you may all be aware, 2021 is the European Year of Rail. On the Europe Mobility and Travel Sector panel, we'll be shedding light on one of the most sustainable, innovative, and safest transport modes Europe has. We will also be discussing air transport between Turkey and Europe. That's right. So let's start with Mr. Şener.
Thank you very much.
Right. Let's face it, we're still in a pandemic, and people are very anxious to travel. I mean, the fact that you guys are here is very brave. But we still have to continue to live our lives. We still have to continue to do the things we did pre-pandemic, but in a different way, if you agree with me. So, tell me, what has been the impact of travel restrictions on air travel?
Thank you, Josh. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to really congratulate Bodrum Municipality and World Tourism Forum Organization Committee, because I think this is one of the first meetings physically in Turkey after 15 months.
That's right.
Yeah. We were all communicating through virtually, but now we are all here physically. So this is evidence that shows that it's going to open. I mean, the doors will be open. Travel restrictions are very important for tourism industry. As you all know, we are in airport management, first of all, as you mentioned. We are operating 15 airports in 8 countries. So in the region, I mean, in Saudi Arabia, in Tunisia, in Europe, we are in Zagreb, we are in Macedonia, we are in Latvia, and Georgia and Almaty. So we know the effect of the pandemic to our travel industry. We felt it a lot. Really, as Mr. Tony Blair said, I mean, the casualties are here. I mean, the tourism sector. We are one of the important rings of the value chain of tourism industry, travel industry. Airports are, because from Europe, now Turkey is welcoming on 2019. 2019 is our reference year. Turkey welcomed 51 million passengers, 51 million tourists to Turkey. 6 million is expats, Turkish expats living in Europe, 45 million foreigners. Among these 45 million, 35 million came by air to Turkey, and 23 million is from European Union countries. Adding up the other Europe countries like Russia and Ukraine, then mostly we are welcoming tourists from Europe. So we have a great relation with Europe. Now, when you look at the trade relation, I mean, 57% of our export is to Europe. So this is another important relation with Europe. We are not a member of European Union, but in a way we are everywhere in Europe. I mean, we are in the travel industry, we are in the committees, Airport Council International. My deputy is a board member of Airport Council International. So we are there. We have very good relations with European Union committees. However, now the problem is with the travel restrictions.
Right.
For travel restrictions, the science, economics, and politics couldn't align themselves up till now. Science committees, politics, and economics couldn't align themselves. When they align themselves, I am sure that there will be a standard for travel restrictions, and there will be a standard for vaccine passport or other kind of verifying virtual or online systems. So this travel restrictions is very important for us as well. Since we are one of the important destinations of Europe, we have to get aligned with European Union rules and regulations. Now, regulations are important, but regulations are outdated now because it's something else with the COVID. Post-COVID, the regulations are outdated. I mean, what I'm trying to say, you cannot manage an artificial intelligence with a 1960 model computer.
So what do you suggest the solution to be?
The solution is standardization. Now we do not have any standard because still on the driving seat of these travel restrictions, health authorities are sitting. I mean, not the economics or the touristic authorities or airports or travel industry, they are not sitting in the driving seat. Still, the health authorities are sitting. So vaccination, as everybody said before us, is very, very important.
Right.
With the increased rate of vaccination, the incidence goes down.
Right.
Now in Turkey, we are very good in the vaccination. I mean, starting in the June, we got 30 million BioNTech from Germany, from Europe, which is actually 15 million has already arrived.
Right.
I know from Turkish Cargo.
I'm going to come in here quickly, and I just quickly remembered what Mr. Taleb Rafai said in his keynote speech about recovery, standardization, as you have said, and having a system in place that allows people to travel again. And he said something about regional travel in terms of, you know, if we want to, we have to reimagine tourism. And part of the impact of that is to look within as much as we look without, right? So I'm going to throw the next question to you, Josianne. I know that Europe is trying to do that, which is look inward and find a way for Europeans to be able to move around. Tell us about that.
First of all, thank you to the organizers, thank you for the invite, thank you to the Global Tourism Forum and to Bodrum for the great hospitality shown so far. It's great to be here addressing you today. It's lovely to witness the beautiful sceneries. I'm an islander, so I love the sea. And it's great also to experience the rich history and gastronomy here. And this is what tourism is all about. And you were asking about regional tourism. Indeed, the European Union is looking inwards, but it is looking outwards, and it should continue looking outwards also. Regional policy is indeed very much important, and all of us here coming from different countries in the world have experienced during this pandemic how important it was that domestic tourists visited different areas within our own countries. I come from Malta, and I come from the smaller island of Gozo, which faces double insularity. But during the pandemic, thanks to tourists coming from the mainland of Malta, for example, it helped the Gozian economy keep on going. And even here, within Turkey, within all of our countries, it's important to look at domestic tourism and at foreign tourism, whether it's coming from within the EU in our case, but also international tourism. And here I do refer to the importance, you are at the beginning referring to the European Year of Rail. And it's important to look at the different connectivities that we have and to see how to strengthen them and how to introduce new ones. We are in Bodrum near the sea, and the sea and sea connections are also very much important. Sometimes, even within the European Union, we tend to focus more on rail and air, which are very much important. And I, coming from Malta and having to travel to Brussels nearly on a weekly basis, I need stronger connections. So yes, we need to assist our airports, we need to assist our transport operators, and we need to also address the issue of lost routes when it comes to travel. But we cannot forget other modes of travel within and also towards other countries. And I believe that for regional tourism, the sea transport is very important, and we can utilize it more when we are in areas near the sea. And I wanted to share a practical example recently in Malta, just 2 weeks ago. We have introduced this fast ferry service between the island of Gozo and the capital of Valletta. And this would help a lot for tourists. It will make the lives easier of so many workers traveling to Malta on a daily basis, but it will help also the tourists. So have different connections, different interoperable connections, and we must focus on interoperability and transport, and therefore this needs to be encouraged. But going back to the regional aspect, yes, I believe that, first of all, the COVID certificates which the European Union is working upon, and which as Tourism Task Force colleagues and also as a Transport and Tourism Committee within the European Parliament, we have been pushing a lot, are very much important. Yes, when the issue of vaccine passports, they were being labeled at the beginning, cropped up, I was also concerned about the inclusivity, because we don't want to create second-class citizens, second-class travelers. And not everyone could take the vaccine, either because their country is still progressing when it comes to the rollout, or else because they may have a disease or they may have something health-related where in the circumstances where they couldn't take the vaccine. And therefore, that's why this concept of COVID certificates is important. It must be applied in full respect of data privacy, it must be non-discriminatory, it must also facilitate the lives of those who have taken the vaccine or have a negative PCR test. And I add, it's important that once it's established, hopefully from the 1st of July, the Parliament gave the final go-ahead in the plenary this week. Peter and I were voting remotely on it from Turkey. And once it is also rolled out in the EU, we need to escalate it towards third countries. Because at the end of the day, yes, tourism, the regional tourism is important, the EU tourism is important, but we all depend on international tourism.
That's right.
And tourism knows no borders. And therefore, let's keep the collaboration ongoing with the stakeholders, with the institutions, with our workers, with our businesses, including our SMEs. Let's keep it going so that we will ensure to have better coordination on a worldwide level.
Ladies and gentlemen, please a round of applause for Josianne Cutajar. That's a very, very thoughtful position she's taking. Now, you know, tourism is some sort of a luxury. And in my opinion, I don't think it should be. We all deserve to get out there and know the world, you know. Tourism in itself is education. You can read all the books in the world, but if you haven't met someone from another country, another continent, sometimes what you've read doesn't even go half in understanding the other person. But yet we have this issue of vaccination that is now cutting deep and dividing us even further. I'm going to make reference to the statement you made about, you know, internal tourism is important, but external tourism is also very important. International tourism is very important. And I hope that institutions working on this vaccine rollout will continue to think about countries that are very slow or behind in their vaccination. Let's talk recovery. And I'm going to direct that question to you now. Peter, what is it like in Europe right now? Is Europe really recovering from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you, Madam Josh, for this wonderful question. I personally believe that the tourism sector will never be the same again after the pandemics. But before answering that, also allow me to thank you for the hospitable host. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to physically meet and share the ideas about the revival of the international tourism, about the future aspects of the tourism. Because let's be honest, the tourism sector was the most severely hit sector in the world. And you mentioned in the beginning that it was a luxury. But let me tell you that in 2019, 1.55 billion people traveled abroad, which means that every fourth person in the world have traveled. Now, Europe is probably the most attractive destination, which managed to attract half of the global tourists in the world and managed to get 2/3 of the tourism income. And even in the European Union, most of the country really rely on the tourism because 9 out of 27 countries form over 10% of their GDP from tourism. And also, tourism is with great economic multiplier, 4.2 times, which means that every single dollar you make from tourism, you make additionally $4 more from aviation, from transport, construction, financial services, and so on and so on. And on top of everything, tourism is probably the biggest employer. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that the mayor can confirm this in Bodrum. Now, that's why, apart from the so many lost lives, this is a tragedy for the sector, because it brought devastating impact on the whole tourism sector. But I also believe that even in this tragedy, there is also an opportunity, because even in Chinese alphabet, the symbol for the crisis and for opportunity is absolutely the same. And now, within the framework of the common European pictures, we have to be visionaries, and we have to reassess. We have to reassess the future structure of the tourism, and why I don't think that the tourism will be, at least the European tourism will not be the same again, and there will be some new sectors and aspects of it. If you allow me, I can be.
Go ahead, because
because
we are all talking about the changes that are going to happen. We
Yes.
haven't really pictured it. What kind of changes do you think are going to happen?
Well, some new types of tourism and aspects of the tourism will be desperately needed and are expected. Because look, the seasonal tourism, this is the one that our hosts are so good and competitive, the seasonal tourism. But yes, it concentrates a lot of people on the same time, at the same place, with all these all-inclusive services. They are not as attractive as they used to be before the pandemic. And even, they generate huge, enormous resources, huge personal, additional financial resources in order to provide that service. Now, the future restructuring of the European tourism will consider and view as a sustainable and all year round tourism. At least this is my perception.
Right.
Because not only spending a good time and having a nice holiday, but also tourism will be looked as a way for recovery, for rehabilitation, prevention, and prophylaxis. That is why I believe that we are facing a basically new type of tourism. And this is due to the economic, the social, the medical, the health crisis. And that type of tourism will be really mostly expected. The recovering of the body physically and mentally. And this is, to be honest, it's beginning to be a lifestyle of the middle-class Europeans already. And Turkey, allow me to mention something. Turkey is the perfect example of high-class working health tourism sector. So to me...
Can I get a round of applause right there? Because it's true.
But when it comes
Medical tourism is a big thing in Turkey. People come from all over the world. If you live in America, say the truth. Don't you come here to get your hair done. Okay, go on.
yeah, Turkey is a perfect example for all kinds of tourism, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the future priority to tourism, to me, would be anti-aging, anti-stress, detox, and so on and so forth. Look at the profile of the future European tourist. He or she's older and more demanding when it comes to her or his health. And imagine there is also the national health funds of the member states. There will be also relief to outsource some of these services to neighboring countries that can provide the same level of quality of the services.
Right.
And the same level of trained personnel on a more reasonable price. And they're also interested in promoting that kind of tourism because it will be even cheaper for them to pay for prevention than for medical treatment afterwards. And this is why myself and the Bulgarian Academy of Science, because I'm also Bulgarian, I'm neighboring country, and also the European League for Economic Cooperation, along with their analytical teams, we all believe that balneary, spa and wellness tourism has huge unexplored potential. Because now it attracts 6.6% of the tourists worldwide, but it generates over 22% of total tourism income.
That's right.
And maybe one more final remark about the other type of tourism.
That will pan out after the pandemic. Okay.
Yes. This is the so-called recreation of the model green zone. Because people, especially after these pandemics, after the globalization, the enlargement of the cities, more and more people would like to get out of the big city and go to a quieter, and to replace it at least temporarily for a natural green environment.
That's right.
With forests, with running natural water, with altitude between 700 and 1200 meters when the air is clean, but it's not diluted at the sun. So second home, especially for people, for European people, middle-class European people, will be definitely desperately needed when it comes to tourism. So this is another aspect of the tourism that I would expect to boost.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for Peter, please. Amazing points. Now, there's something I want to ask you guys. He's mentioned something very important. It's happened to me. When I go on holidays, one of the things I love to do is to cuddle in my very soft bed in a luxury hotel and just sleep. But after like more than a year of the pandemic and just cuddling in my little room and working from my laptop, I just want to get out there. So let's take a poll. If you go on a holiday tomorrow, raise your hands if you would love to spend time in nature. Bravo. Please put your hands together for yourselves. So Bodrum is the place to be to start with, and I'm going to take that question back to Mr. Şener. Clearly, there is behavioral change. We're noticing serious behavioral change of tourists towards tourism. Now that the things are getting better pandemic-wise, tell us, as a manager of lots of airports across the world, what are the behavioral changes you're noticing, and what advice do you have, for providers of services in the industry?
This is very important. In airports, we have two kinds of revenues. We have aeronautical revenues and non-aeronautical revenues. Non-aeronautical revenues mainly depends on the behavior of the passengers. So now we are trying to understand the post-COVID behavior of the passengers. Now,
are you still trying, or do you have it figured out yet?
Yeah,
we just took a poll.
We have figured.
Okay.
We have figured out. The behavior is not going to change more. But the important thing is, since we are a regulated sector, it was very easy for airports to adapt to the changes. Now, what are the main changes? It's the health screening. Now, we were screening, security screening. Now we have health screening. Health screening is very important in airports now, and the passengers likes it. This is very important. Second, they get used to digitalization, because practical application of digitalization is very important in our airports. We are managing a chaos. Every day, 100,000 people. It's too much. And different people. Every day, 100,000 different people. So you have to show them the way out. You have to show them how to secure themselves in physical distancing and social distancing, contactless check-in, and other kind of issues. Now, we checked this. For example, we were saying that are they going to buy from duty-frees? They are buying. Are they going to use the food and beverage? They are using. Okay? In the aircrafts, it is actually a good benefit for us. They are not rushing to the gate when the aircraft just stopped down. So they are all behaving greatly in aircrafts. And we showed that airports and aircrafts are really secure and safe places for health issues, COVID-19 issues. This was an important issue. But we have done it because we are very regulated. We are regulated on every kind of issue. The second thing, for the recovery, we have seen last year our tourism ministry got and put down a strategy for safe tourism certificate. Immediately, all the airports and the airlines and hotels and restaurants has got this certificate. This was an important issue. First of all, while they are getting this certificate, they learned. They learned the rules, and because the education and training of the personnel in the hotel and in airports is very important. First, you have to teach them. First, you have to take care of the health of your personnel, and you have to take care of your passengers. This is the health issue. Secondly, to make this happen, you have to train them, and we train them all. Now, in Turkey, when you look at in Turkey in general, as our colleagues, panelist friends from European Union mentioned, now we have the best airline, Turkish Airlines.
That's right.
We have
A round of applause. That's the truth, right? Thank you, thank you. Unbiased truth, thank you. All right.
And our company is operating 5 airports in Turkey, which are brand new airports. Even Bodrum, we are operating Bodrum Airport as well. Airports are brand new. Airline is one of the best. And then the hotels are brand new and very well educated hotel employees are serving there. So, I mean, when you look at the infrastructure, it is there. That is why tourism and travel restrictions are very important for Turkey. Really, thank you very much, our panelist friends. I mean, they talked about the non-discrimination in the passports, vaccine passport. This is very important. But you remember in the first round, I said that science, politics, and economics has to go parallel. They are not aligned. And science is saying that we don't accept Sputnik or Sinovac vaccines. Why you don't expect? They would like Chinese and Russians to come to Europe. How can you avoid it? Okay. So what happens now? ICAO, you know, we have IATA. IATA is for airlines. ACI is for airports, and ICAO is for civil aviation. Now ICAO put down some regulation, takeoff cards, and they are working with World Health Organization. So I am sure that the standardization is there. It's going to happen. When it happens, then automatically these travel restrictions will have a standard. When we say standard, everybody is calling me, for example, friends are saying that in Germany, 14 days or 7 days quarantine. In France, 3 days or 4 days quarantine.
In Canada, it's worse, by the way.
A lot of questions. I mean, is vaccine certificate going to be taken 72 hours before or 48 hours before?
Oh my God.
Vaccine, these kind of things. One shot or second shot. So now they are going to digitalize it, and we put it in a passport. You can call it passport or certificate whatever.
Better, yes.
A round of applause for Mr. Şener. Thank you for that.
Certificate is better. Thank you. So I am sure we are there, and good days are coming. As I said before, this is a very good evidence of physical. I think one of the first Congress after 15 months. So congratulations to Bodrum Municipality and Tourism Ministry.
Right, I'd like to know how many more minutes I have, because trust me, I could stay all day. I have very brilliant panelists. So just let me know how many more minutes I have to wrap up this panel. In the meantime, what brought us to this pandemic? It was a health mishap, right? We had a virus They danced all the way. It's disputable, but, you know, still arguably from China. God bless any Chinese in the house. I love you so much, but, you know, the news says arguably it came all the way from Wuhan. And people are beginning to rethink the future of health. They're taking health seriously. They're taking the environment seriously. And Europe is looking into how to modify transportation and make it more environmentally friendly. And they're looking into rail. That's right. In fact, it's European Year of Rail, and it's supposed to launch in September, I believe. Tell us more about that, and I'm going to come back to you to ask you about what is that? How is that going to impact air travel? Because air travel is still the most preferred, fastest. You cannot say the safest. Some of us still have doubts flying, but it is still the safest one. So I'll come to you. Europe Year of Rail. You're trying to make it more green. What is that like? How is that going?
Thank you for the question. The rail is an important sector, which is also one we're looking towards greening it, because it's considered as one of the most clean kinds of transport, and we're looking to make it even greener. And this is a very important aspect. And may I refer to the new trends when it comes to transport and travel. Several colleagues have mentioned it. Even the mayor mentioned the digital nomads earlier on. The minister mentioned the environmental aspect. Peter was also speaking about the environmental aspect. Our colleague was speaking about digitalization. So all these important aspects are to be put all together. Excuse me, but my microphone is...
We can hear you clearly, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
Can you hear her?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear
Great.
me like this? Okay, so I don't
Great.
need to arrange it. Okay, so yes, we have to look at the new trends when it comes to transportation and travel for the future whilst recovering. And that's why I'm calling for the focus on regenerative tourism. And regenerative tourism goes even beyond the sustainable tourism we speak so much of. And we have to look at consumer behavior, the change in consumer behavior, which even before the pandemic was showing us that there are travelers who are eco-conscious, who would look at eco-friendly travel options, who would look at eco-friendly accommodation options. And this will continue increasing even as we see Europe and the world pushing forward towards the environmental transition. And in the EU, we speak a lot about the famous twin transition, which refers to the digital transition as well as the environmental one. And digitalization is also an important means of how we get towards cleaner transport. And this is a very important aspect. But apart from a bottom-up approach, because when we do legislation, when we do policy, we are imposing or we are adapting a top-down approach, we need to look towards a bottom-up approach also. And the consumer trends are there towards more digitalization, towards more eco-friendly tourism. And this is an important aspect. The pandemic has pushed digitalization even more.
That's right.
And we have seen how we are applying much more contactless technologies, and we are also experiencing remote working. So yes, this week I was able to attend this conference physically in Bodrum, but at the same time I was able to follow the plenary, to vote even on the COVID certificates and other aspects digitally. And this digital shift is allowing us to survive better, to recover better from the pandemic. So moving forward, we must look at a recovery which will keep in mind the twin transition of the digital and environmental aspect, which is coming both from the legislator and the European institutions,
Brilliant.
as is the case of the European Year of Rail, but also look at the consumer demands, which are going into that direction too. And may I add the security aspect, whether we're speaking about rail, whether we're speaking about air or maritime transport, the security aspect is very important. And the EU is working upon a European safety seal. It's good to arrive in a destination. It's positive to see security seals, safety seals. Once I arrived at the airport in Bodrum, I saw this safety seal for tourism, and it gives you more security of mind. So these common standards, these security seals count a lot for the travelers, but count also for the local populations, because the local population has its mind more at rest of, whilst we're having the vaccination, we're having also these safety standards. And may I conclude on the importance of interoperability. The rail, the sea, the air, the land transport, we need to look towards better connection. We need to look towards better connection for faster and more efficient travel, for cleaner travel whilst decreasing more the emissions. And may I add the importance of affordable travel. Yes, the pandemic has had its impact on finances of various people around the world. And when we speak of connectivity, we need to ensure that it is efficient and that it is affordable. Otherwise, we are going to suffer, all of us. I come from a country which depends on tourism, as does Turkey. And I understand this important point firsthand. So whilst it's important not to overlook standards and to invest in quality tourism, we need to make sure also that the transport is affordable for all. Because after all, we need inclusive transport.
Please, a round of applause for Josianne Cutajar. We're going to wrap it up now, but I'm going to get their final words as it is a tradition. Affordability. We cannot say that well enough, because remember, there is a concept that tourism is for people who can afford it. Digitization is also not cheap. And now we're in a pandemic where you need a vaccine. More and more, the gap is getting wider. So it is incumbent on our policymakers, it is incumbent on institutions and private organizations to make transportation affordable for all. Final word, Mr. Şener.
Final word, I agree with her. I mean, it can be rail, it can be air, land, or sea. The connectivity, connections is very important. For instance, now A380, which Airbus was manufacturing, stopped it because they were carrying to a center, to a hub and spoke system, and carrying with small airlines. Now they want to come to Bodrum directly, origin and destination. They don't stop over by Istanbul and come here. So the connectivity and connections is very important, and affordability, as she says, because it is supply and demand.
Right.
The passenger will select it. Thank you.
Mr. Peter Vitanov?
No, all the transport access aspects were already mentioned.
All right.
Because we talk about, my colleagues talked about the security, the safety, the environmental effect, the connectivity, the affordability. But there is one more aspect that we are trying to pay also attention
Go
on.
for it.
This is the improving of the human rights when it comes to transport. Because you mentioned the year of the rail, but we adopted a legislation concerning the improvement of the passengers' right in the rail sector, making them more eco-friendly, because we oblige the trains to have spaces for bicycles, for instance. We oblige the
And wheelchairs for the need, special
those
needs
in
people.
need, of course, those with disabilities, with mechanical disabilities. They have the opportunity now to travel to be accompanied free by a dog or a person. So this is also a very important aspect to make people feel more comfortable when they travel, and to guarantee that they have minimum standards of rights. And this is also important aspect of the better traveling, and of course, which affects the tourism as well.
Have you had a good time, people? Was it a good panel? Give them a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Adesewa Josh, and it's been my honor to host this wonderful, informative, brilliant people on this panel called Mobility and Travel Sector in Europe. Enjoy the rest of the conference.